Hi there everyone, hope you're keeping well. I'm just about to jump on a Zoom call with two of the guys from COBRA Golf. So Jose Miraflor, who is the VP of Marketing, and Tom Olasvsky, who is the VP of Product R&D. So we're going to talk to them a little bit about the new RADSPEED lineup of clubs, but also about COBRA Puma in general, and some of the questions you guys have sent in, I'm going to ask them as well. So hope you enjoy the video. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button, see loads more content from all of us here at Golfshake to help you play more and play better. And don't forget to hit the notifications bell as well to be kept up to date with everything as soon as it hits the channel.
Happening.
Jose, how are you?
Great, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
How are things in the UK? You guys opened up? Or
Not
you
too
guys
bad.
still shut down?
No, we're still closed, unfortunately. Yeah, we're hoping for some news early next week. How has it been for you this last 12 months really of the kind of uncertainty that we've had going on? Has it been okay for you and your family? Are you all good?
Well, on a personal note, the family is great. You know, kids are resilient, wife's resilient. We can roll. Wife's really happy that I'm home. Normally I travel, spend over 100,000 miles in the air normally a year. So this last year, I think my last trip was the PGA show in 2020.
Right.
So maybe she's had to get reacquainted with me, but she's been happy I've been home.
I was going to say, she's sick of the sight of you now. Does she want everything to open back up again? Or?
As you can see, I'm in the office. So Tuesday, Thursdays, to ensure that she still likes me when I get home, I go to the office and make sure there's some separation.
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's been slightly crazy, hasn't it? And I suppose from a company perspective, has it been difficult knowing when you're going to release product and kind of being able to plan inventory and things like that around the world? Has that been a big challenge for you?
Frankly speaking, it's been a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine last year, like for example, in 2019 in fall, we introduced some irons called T-rails, and those are for, people who need help with their game. By February, we were sold out because they were so well received. Well, China was in shutdown, so there were no replacement sets being made until China opened up right around May. So they spent May, June making them, and you look at July, August shipping them. So we didn't get replenishment till September. And that's what the whole year was like. We were trying to launch. Do you remember that prototype putter we launched in November?
Yep.
And celebrating 3D printing, the Super Sport 30. Yeah, exactly. Well, that putter originally last year was slotted to be delivered in April. So
right,
look
okay.
at all days.
Wow.
Black wedges, which came in July, were supposed to be March. So we had delays across the board on the club side that were incredible, caused by COVID. And to be honest, here in the United States and globally, golf shops were pretty much closed anyways. Who are you going to deliver it to?
Yeah.
So we thought the year was going to be a really tough year. We were thinking 60% down, 50% down. And as we clawed our way back in the months of June, July, August, September, really the second half of the year was so strong globally because I think we're really happy, right? More people playing golf than ever. We were able to finish on the Cobra side 25% up the year before.
Wow.
And that was a huge year because of F9.
Well, let's get on to talking about product. So obviously RADSPEED has been a huge sort of product launch, and although no consumers over here certainly have got to actually hit it or see it, I've been lucky enough to I've actually got a load of stuff on the table in front of me here. So I've been lucky enough to hit it myself, do some product videos which we've got on our YouTube channel as well, and yeah, just absolutely loved it. From sort of top to bottom in terms of just the looks and the feel and everything about it, I thought it kind of evolved from last year's model. And I suppose what I wanted to sort of start with was, when you go about designing a product like this, where do you kind of start? Is it the key technologies you look for to start with and then kind of go from there? Or do you look at your tour staff and find out what they want and kind of build it from there? Or do you look at it from the, we look at your average golfer and kind of go from there? How does it come about?
Well, if there was a D, it would be all of the above. I would take Because really, we're an innovation company. So we look at problems to make solutions. So when you think about what does Ricky, Bryson, and Lexi want? Well, they want to continue with low spin and add forgiveness. So when they're having a bad day, it's going to go straight without giving up workability. You look at most golfers like me, I'm looking for, yes, I want low spin, but I want even more forgiveness because I'm going to miss it more than those guys. Yeah. And then you have people that are high handicappers and they're saying, I can't hit the ball straight. I slice it a lot. I come over the top. What do they need? So we look at everybody and we build solutions to that. Our engineers are about a couple years ahead. So about 2 years ago, one of our innovation engineers showed us this technology. He said, I know we can create a driver that's fast by moving weight to the front. We know we can make a driver that's super forgiving, weight in the back. That's really speed zone and speed zone extreme. But if you want the best combination of both, you got to free up enough weight to do both to it so that you can have weight in front for speed and weight in back and drive at forgiveness. And that was the whole goal this year, is freeing up as much weight as we can to use it where the different types of golfers need it, whether you're tour players, low handicap or mid or high handicap. We can make a driver for you if we save that amount of weight and if we place it to the right places.
And I suppose that's why you have the three different heads there in the range. Yeah? So, you know, for someone like myself who tends to spin the ball a lot and you know, fairly high club head speed, RADSPEED is probably going to be perfect. Whereas, you know, you've got your XB driver here where there's a hell of a lot more weight back here. And then I don't have the draw model, unfortunately. But yeah, the XD with that kind of help for the guy or girl that misses it to the right a little bit more, you know, like you say, it is kind of everything's thought about, isn't it, in this range, really?
Yeah, you have to. There's no one golf club that's going to help everybody. Say that there's less of you than there are of masses of people that need draw. But if you think about it, most people look what's being used on tour and that's what they buy. I hope that your listeners are a bit more savvy than that and they can like discern what's the right golf club for them by our discussion, because if you try all three, one of them definitely is going to stand out for you as a best performer.
So what would you say is kind of what do golfers need to know about RADSPEED? What is it going to do to help them play better golf? What would you say is the sort of the big kind of...
The big thing is radial weighting. You know, this is the only driver in golf that's going to have weights both in the front or in the back or even in the heel. One of these is going to be the right fit for you based on what you think you need. Don't have an ego about it, because Jason Duffner, for example, one of the best ball strikers on tour, not the best putter, but one of the best ball strikers, hit all three drivers. And he said these drivers are straight as explicative. And he really just commented how even the draw for him was a pretty darn good fit. But when it came down to it, the low spin is what he needed the most. So if that's what you need, like you know what to get. But if you need help with your slice more than anything, draw is what you get. And if you're in the middle, you just want forgiveness because you have good launch conditions now, and you just want more speed or more straight line controllability, then, you know, the XB is the right one for you.
A question we've had from someone on Twitter was about why would you change from an F9, which was an unbelievably good driver, or an SZ? Why would you then move into RADSPEED from there? And you've just answered the question, really. It's all about that radial weighting story and making it more forgiving for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, and honestly, normally when you make something more forgiving, your spin goes up. So guys like you who were in SZ or F9, you would say, this has F9's low spin capability, but drives the forgiveness up. So when you do miss it occasionally, it's much more stable. You'll have less of those snap hooks if you hit it on the toe, and better control of the spin and rightward movement if you hit it on the heel. That's what a golfer like you really wants, right? And then a golfer like me, who I've really enjoyed last year, is the extreme. I play off of 5, but you know, I'm not as long as most golfers because I'm older now. So I want to swing hard, and if I do miss it, it's stable. So what I'm looking for is less movement to the left if I miss it on the toe. That's what that driver gives me. I don't struggle with low spin. I only spin at about 2,000 RPM. So that's perfect if you think about it. I want to control direction, and that's why I use the XB. And that added a little bit lower spin for me, so it kept my spin low by adding with more forgiveness.
One of the other things I wanted to talk about was aesthetics as well, because we've obviously got two very different finishes in these heads, with the matte in the RADSPEED, and then in the XD and XB we've got this more gloss sort of finish on the top of the head. What is the... Did you want things just to be a little bit different, or was there ever a conversation where we just make the entire range exactly the same? Because I suppose from a consumer perspective, if I all of a sudden found that this was the driver that fitted me, but this was the fairway wood, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying? I think with having the difference in the two finishes, you know, for those kind of I don't know, slightly more anal people out there who might want everything to look exactly the same. It's to be honest, it wouldn't bother me at all. But it's one of the questions we've got about the finishes and why there's not that continuity throughout the range. Is there any sort of answer to that, or a reason? Or
absolutely, there is. So you brought it up in the beginning. We work with Ricky and Bryson and Lexi on these drivers, and you know, the tour staff really believed in the matte finish. They like the matte finish because it helps reduce glare. Now, remember, matte is very fragile. That's Italian for scratches easily, right? And you could literally save yourself by having the gloss. The gloss is a clear coat, and it hardens the finish and resists scratching. So for the better players like you who are taking care of the clubs, put the head covers on, we made the matte finish to match Ricky's, Bryson's, and Lexi's. When you move to the XB and the XD, a lot of times we see these consumers rolling around the golf course in their buggies or their carts or their trolleys, and no head cover on. And it's sitting there hitting other clubs, getting scratched up. Well, that gloss finish is going to be much more robust and more stable. It scratches less. And that's why we wanted to do that for the other two, to add durability to it. In regards to the fairway woods, again, we worked with the players, and they said it's a smaller club. There's less surface area for it to glare. So the matte made it look too small. So they liked the gloss finish. So we went gloss across the fairways. We don't typically like to just do something for no apparent reason. There's always, like you said, are you asking your tour players? And we do. We talk to them a lot about it, and we just finished it the way they liked it.
And would that be the reason why in the fairway wood, obviously in the normal RADSPEED, we've got the infinity face that sort of creeps up onto the crown there a little bit, and it's more of like a milled insert, if you like, in the face. In the other two models, is it just purely from tour player feedback?
Yeah, great. Your players and you are your followers are very smart, and you are too. Absolutely, that's the case. So when you have the infinity face, while it helps most golfers get a little bit more speed, it also helps the roofing on the front of the club, right?
We've all done it.
We've all done it, especially the ball sitting in the rough and you're trying to use a fairway wood to come out of it. But the tour players feel that when they see that on the club, it looks like there's added loft. They don't want to see all that loft, so they requested the big tour fairway and the tour 5 wood to have the traditional paint line without the infinity face, and we made it like that for them.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I had the King Limited fairway wood a while back, and honestly, it's one of the best I've ever used. It just came out with zero spin on it, pretty much, and just went miles. And kind of the big tour this time with that matte finish and just the way it sits behind the ball just reminds me of it so much. And certainly when I took it out on the golf course and tested it, it was possibly everything I loved about King Limited, but it was so much more versatile. I thought you could shape it a lot easier with this one, and yeah, it just looks great. And the 5 wood, I think, having, because the rails sit a little bit more prominent, don't they, on the 5 wood, obviously, because you're going to be hitting this out of rough and sort of different,
a little bit steeper.
Absolutely. So there is that then progression throughout, and with standard RADSPEED, you've then got a smaller rail. So, you know, you've kind of got more aggressive in the 5, a halfway house and pretty much nothing in the big tour, haven't you? So yeah, you can really see that progression of the design. But yeah, in terms of aesthetics, I think that's something that everyone wanted to know that I've spoken to about the product is why there was that difference in there. And you know, it's tour player feedback is obviously key for you guys, isn't it? Shaft length has obviously been in the news recently, and it's been talked about in terms of the USGA and the R&A looking at limiting that. Is that, where do you stand on that? Do you think that's, are you in the Rory McIlroy camp where you think they need to be spending money on something a little bit more important, or do you think do you think this needs limiting?
Well, on a personal note, I mean, well, let me answer it two ways. As a company note, you know, we believe in enjoy golf. That's been our mantra since I started here with the company in 2011, and since 2010, that's been on our walls. Let's build clubs that help people enjoy the game. Personally, I agree with that same statement. Whatever helps people play this game's hard. I'm not sure. Bryson and the team and all those people on tour, the top 150, make it look really easy. But this game's hard. And we have more people playing it now than ever. And why do they play it? Well, it's great to be outdoors, and it's actually really rewarding to hit a really long shot. Birdies are what get people to play the game, not bogeys. So why are we going to make the game even harder? How many people can swing a 48-inch driver? Not many. But those who can, they possess a skill to be able to do it. Why not let them? Right? I don't see an issue with that. I think there's other things you can do to make the game harder for the top 150, top 500 in the world. There are other things, golf course setup, green speeds, green firmness. There's all kinds of things you can do to protect it. It isn't always about distance. If you make everything the same length, 46 inches or shorter, Bryson's still going to be longer than everybody else because he's out working them in the gym. Can you take away that from him? I don't think so. He's still going to. I think there are other things that might make sense. This is me speaking to you personally. As a company thing, again, we believe that the game is hard, and we'd like to make golf clubs to help people play their best. And we're going to continue to do that no matter what the rules are. We think we can engineer our way around different things and make things better on our side.
Like you say, it's very much about enjoyment, isn't it? If we could make golf clubs that mean that people are going to enjoy the game more, then why the heck can't we do that?
Yeah, and we could make it even easier for people, but we stay within the USGA guidelines. We haven't made a non-conforming driver. We know how to make them faster. We know how to do a bunch of things to do, but you know, we're playing within the given rules. And you know, just in my point of view, the basketball height of basketball rims hasn't changed from 10 feet. The baseball diamonds are still the same distance. Football, European football, and American football fields are still the same lengths. You know, they haven't changed, and they've withstood the test of time of athletes becoming super athletes, right? I think golf can too. You know, I think it's still a hard sport, and I don't want to see rules change from the pros to the normal cats like us. We want to know how good our score was relative to a golf pro still, right? Not have them governed.
Absolutely. I can't thank you enough for taking your time to talk to us, and that you know, that's pretty much all the questions we've had about that. But you know, personally, I've loved hitting this. I've loved testing it, and to be honest, your drivers just seem to get better and better, and fairway woods obviously seem to get better all the time. And as I've said about the trying the fairway wood, and I struggle to find one as good as King Limited, and I go back to it all the time, you know. But I think this might just top it a little bit. But yeah, I just can't thank you enough, Jose, for taking time to talk to us and kind of answer some of the questions that our followers and everyone's had, really. So yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Ryan. Thank you to you and all your followers for supporting Cobra and the game of golf. I hope everybody gets out there soon and plays as much golf as they can. Enjoy it.
Trust, absolutely.
So it was a great chat with Jose. We're now going to log on, speak to Tom about the new RADSPEED iron range. But awesome to speak to Jose. There's lots and lots of things you can take from that about the process that they go through with all the tour players, as well as how they design products for, you know, the rest of the golf market, really, and some of the problems they faced as well throughout this year. So let's log on and speak to Tom. Tom, how are you?
Hey Ryan, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. Bear with me a second. Jose loves to talk, so sorry we just ran over a little bit.
I know that problem.
Well, to be honest, it was me as well. So.
Good.
So we've spoken to some of our kind of followers on social media, as well as YouTube and things like that, subscribers, and asked them what they would ask you guys if they got a chance to sit in front of you.
Sure.
And had any questions. So I've got a few that I can ask as well, but sort of generally just wanted to say thanks for giving us your time, and thanks for spending time with us today just to talk through some of the fantastically impressive RADSPEED line that is still yet to launch over here, but because no one's got it in their hand. But yeah, hopefully it'll be very, very soon before that happens. And like we were just talking about, people just can't wait to get out on the golf course. And having done all of our reviews for the YouTube channel, we've obviously had lots and lots of feedback about how good the irons look and how good they looked in the video, as well as the metal woods and things as well. So I think the appetite is definitely there, Tom, and yeah, we can't wait. So talk to us about the sort of design process for an iron like this. I mean, it's obviously aimed at the sort of player who needs that little bit of help and needs that little bit of forgiveness. And so how do you go about doing that?
Well, you know, when you think of the category, it's game improvement, right? So you would say mostly that's between 10 and 20 handicappers is sort of the 80th percentile of the golfers, you know, and that's where a lot of golfers are. That's the majority of golfers. I think the U.S. handicap is average around 14 or 15 right now. So there's a ton of golfers there, but, you know, part of it is still we have to sell product through the trade, right? So the trade is the fitters, the retail associates, the assistant pros or the pros maybe. So part of our industry still has to work with those players because they're the ones then selling it to the consumer. So one of the comments we heard, particularly on, our SZ and our F9 irons, was they looked a little big, so when we went into designing the RADSPEED, part of it was, okay, well, what can we do with the shape? We want the performance we get from the shape and moving the mass to the extremes and all that, but what can we do to improve that? Not only for the player themselves, but also for these key influencers that sell the product. And I think one of the things, especially irons, are very aspirational in the sense that people probably don't want to have as much help maybe as they should because they're in that category of, hey, I'm decent enough, and I'm not a super game improvement guy, so I'm looking for something that has some great looks and some great playability. So it's always this balance. Golf club design is a balance of trade-offs between look and performance and sound and feel and center of gravity and all that together. So a lot of it we went into this iron with is saying, hey, we need to provide more distance. That's what this golfer is looking for. That's not so much a better player need, but that's really the game improvement need, is they want the club to give more distance, essentially with the same swing. So that's where the hardcore engineering goes in terms of making the power shell face thinner and lowering the center of gravity and improving the moment of inertia or the radius of gyration. Either term is helpful. And then this one was really about packaging. How can we make the iron look a little bit cleaner, look a little bit maybe more classic looking from the bag appeal, if you will. The comment we hear a lot from the associates, that I just mentioned is things like, well, it's too big and chunky, right? And chunky is not a word that a designer likes to hear, right?
No.
So part of that is really how can we slim the shape, engineer the performance, all together in the same package. So that was where we started with RADSPEED, was some of the feedback. And I think if you think about the gestation time of these products, Ryan, we started these before we had launched SZ, basically.
Okay.
So we had got the feedback from F9, and everybody said, chunky is a word they used. So we said, hey, we can make them a little slimmer. So we started the shaping process and the design process. It's about 18 months in advance of the launch dates. So we would have started these in the middle of 2019. So that part of it you see is, hey, we sleeken I don't know if that's a word yet, but we slimmed down the sole, but wanted to keep the properties and keep the radius of gyration high. So that's when we placed some of that material that was in the head itself into the RADSPEED screw.
Yeah.
And again, you're trying to place that weight as far apart as possible, but with using a screw out there versus, trying to do it with shape and size makes it a lot slimmer looking. So that was a key design element. The other thing was, when you take material out of the back and out of the sole, your center of gravity tends to go up a little bit, so that wasn't necessarily the trend we wanted. So when you look at the RADSPEED with the 3D printed medallion, we're saving between 3 and 6 grams on the medallion system. And that's pretty critical. That weight in the medallion is a bit higher. So if you could save that weight and keep it, low in the head, then you can keep the properties, even though we slimmed the shape down a little bit. So that was really the key elements behind the RADSPEED iron, was looking at, hey, how can we make this better looking and more appealing that way, but continue to play great and give us all the speed and distance that the game improved player wants.
Absolutely. And I suppose that the iron, it's all about, like you were saying, hiding away that technology, isn't it? So that the player looks down and loves the look of the golf club, and it's kind of helping them in secret, if you like, isn't it? It's doing all the jobs that you were saying about F9 and SZ iron were doing, but in a just slightly sleeker and more refined package, isn't it? And that's certainly what, when I tested the product and we did a review of it, that's exactly what I sort of remarked upon, how good the iron looked. Not necessarily compared to the previous models, but just in that kind of class that it's in. It's that game improver iron, and it's for that golfer who really needs that help, yet all that help is kind of hidden away, and you've sort of highlighted exactly why that is, really. So as I said to you at the start, we've kind of had some questions come in from some of our subscribers and some of our followers on various social media channels around the products, and we kind of just said if they got a chance to speak to you guys about any of the R&D or marketing, we've just been talking to Jose, obviously, what would they ask you? And so with irons, this kind of loft debate always comes up as to why do manufacturers make lofts so strong? Now,
people are almost saying you're not comparing a 7-iron to a 7-iron because of the loft. Now, from a sort of technical standpoint, what is the reason why irons are made so much stronger?
Well, this trend started many years ago. We weren't the first to do it, but COBRA was certainly a part of that in the history of that. And what we learned, when I got in the industry 30 years ago, it was, the lofts were much weaker than they are today. And certainly one of the things we've learned how to do is engineer the product better, so we can get a lower center of gravity, we can get more inertia, we can get, a lot of these different materials involved. So one of the things that's really interesting is that golfers like to see, we would call it the flight window, if you will, or the shot window. When you hit a shot, you want to look up and see, hey, it's going about this high. So part of that, and it's interesting because we've done a lot of surveys on this, especially with the one length buyer, is, people want to see a shot at a certain height. And when you get out of that window, they say, well, it's too high, it's going to go short, which in reality it doesn't. But there's complaints about controllability. There's complaints about, wind and buffeting and effects by the wind. So one of the things that people are looking for is a certain window. So when you have an iron with a very low center of gravity, it hits it above the window. Yeah. And so that's something that we see not with just good players, but with all kinds of players. They're looking for that certain window of ball play. And so F9 irons were a good example in the speedback. That was the first one we put the speedback shape into it with a much lower center of gravity, and CG a little further back. So those irons actually launched a bit higher. In our sense, they probably would have been either at the top of the window or out of the window for a number of players. And that was something that we were worried about because, this game is what people think about it from a golf club perspective. It's what the consumers think about the irons, not necessarily what we think.
Absolutely. And certainly what I tend to go back to that person that asked that question with is it's all about the CG so low now to help people get it in the air that we need to control the ball flight. Otherwise, you just hit it straight up in the air and it wouldn't go anywhere. So the loft is almost, not that it's irrelevant because it's not, but certainly, like you said, you're trying to do it to hit that kind of shot window, aren't you? And it's when we're doing fittings with irons, you would expect, because it's so strong a loft, you would expect the spin to be really low, and certainly that's not happening. We're getting, the kind of spin that we would expect on a 7-iron golf club. I think in RADSPEED, is it something like 27.5 degrees? I think a 7-iron, which is in my book, that's a 5-iron, really, isn't it? But it doesn't go. When I've hit it on the TrackMan, I hit a 5-iron 200 yards. I'm not hitting this club 200 yards. It just doesn't do it. So,
right.
So yeah. the engineering part of it is helping get that ball flight that little bit higher, isn't it? And just like you say, hitting that shot window that we're looking for. Now, obviously we don't want consumers to be buying irons that they can't stop on greens. So actually, like you're saying, that loft is fairly critical in gapping the set properly, but also meaning that the consumer's happy and they're actually gonna hit the green as well.
You know, the launch monitors now provide the landing angles and things like that, and peak heights. You know, a lot of the fitters use that to say, hey, we want a peak height of a certain angle so that you can hold a green. Because I think the other thing that people forget about the last so many years, you know, certainly it's been a while since we had a lot of balls, but certainly, you know, when you look at what consumers play, a lot of times they're playing golf balls that have lower spin than they had many years ago.
Yeah.
Right. So part of that not holding a green is that lower spin, which is why you want to keep the ball flight high.
Loft is only one part of the equation, isn't it? You know, we've got lots of other variables in there. Otherwise, everyone would use an 8-degree driver because it'd go further than a 12, and we know that that's not the case. So, so obviously, the loft isn't playing as much of a part as people think it is. You know, people deliver the club differently, as you've alluded to, and yeah, certainly we have to. Obviously, a good club fitter will be able to sort that out for you, and like you say, get those peak heights and descent angles and things like that we're looking for in order to control the product. But yeah, so obviously loft is something that is always gone on about when new product comes out. But you alluded to one length as well when we just spoke about that. So we've had questions as well from a lot of our sort of viewers and subscribers and followers about who one length suits really, and is it aimed at a certain type of golfer? Or one of the questions we had is, can seniors golfers use one length really, and what would you say to those sort of questions?
Well, we find a couple different points of information there, Ryan. One is it can be used by anyone from Bryson DeChambeau, who just won the US Open, to the highest handicap levels. The whole concept of one length is it just makes the game simpler from a standpoint of you have the same setup and the same swing for every iron in your bag. So that simplifies things. And I think when we see a lot of golfers and talk to them like, well, yeah, geez, I have to go from a longer club length in the long iron to a shorter club length. There's some variation there. And you know, usually I hit long irons good and I don't hit short irons good, or vice versa, right? Almost everybody hits their 7-iron pretty well.
Yeah.
You think about it, you know, the 7-iron is the most athletic posture, right? It's not bent over too much. It's not taller with that longer club and having to deal with that. So it's a great position to start. And that's how we do our fitting. You know, if you look at all the industry, we fit with 7-irons for the most part, that middle club in the bag. And so part of that is if we can make all the clubs play with that simple setup like a 7-iron, but give them different ball flights by the way we design the heads, it's going to be much simpler to execute. And that's where Bryson came to us with this concept. And he said, geez, it makes my practice time shorter. It makes my swing more consistent, not only in practice, but also on the course. You know, as we play, you know, one hole you're going to hit a 5-iron, one hole you're going to hit a wedge, next hole you may hit a 7-iron. If you could swing all the same, you build that consistency throughout the round and you will score better. And we've seen it, you know, with the Arcos data where we track golfers. For instance, in my particular case, you know, I'm a 5 or 6 handicap usually. And in Arcos, you know, on approach shots, my original data was suggesting I was a 12 handicap in approach shots. So it wasn't a strength compared to my handicap. When I switched to one length, my approach shot handicap went from 12 down to 6.
Right. Okay. Very good.
So you can see it now. I'm a 6 handicap. I have decent speed, you know. So I think that's the thing we see. It can work for all players. Now, one of the things I have is I have some back issues, you know, and we found pretty simple, a few simple rules. If you're taller or if you have back issues, one length is going to be better because it's more consistent. Many times if you struggle with long irons, one length is better because you tend to hit a one length long iron more in the center of the face. The problem with the longer club is you don't hit in the center of the face as much.
Yeah.
So that trade-off is there. We find with players, you get a better short game because, again, it's more of a 7-iron stroke, right? If you chip around the greens with a 7-iron all day, one length is going to help you because now you have wedges and 7-irons and everything all the same repeatable setup, repeatable stroke. So that's the one thing we find. It works for all handicaps, really.
It's just, you know, one thing we were talking to Jose about was trying to, the kind of mantra that COBRA have is making the game more fun for people, you know, and just designing things to, to make the game more appealing and more fun. And certainly I think one length falls into that category in that it's making it easier for, I mean, for say a beginner who's never played the game before, probably doesn't understand why our club's different length. You know, why isn't every club the same with just the loft different? You know, and I think that one length kind of makes it a bit more simple. It makes it a little bit more, I don't know, palatable for that person who just wants to pick up a golf club and hit it. And certainly the success I've had, particularly with ladies and seniors and juniors, is that one length is something that once you get into it, it's hard to come out, isn't it, really? It's just something that, like you've alluded to in your own game, it's something that once you see the benefit, you don't really want to go back, do you?
Right, yeah. And so, the question back to who it's for, obviously we would say, yes, it's for those categories of golfers who are just starting or need some help. But again, I'm a 6 handicap. My approach shots were poor, and so when I switched, I got better. So, we say it's for any golfer who wants to improve their iron play. One length can improve that. And any golfer who has a poor short game, one length is going to be better because it's more repeatable. So that's why it's hard to say who's it's for, because we could say, it could be for every golfer. The one thing we found probably is that I would say a good player that's not taller in stature with a really good short game who hits knockdown shots and maneuvers the wedge a lot. We found those players it doesn't work for. We found the simple mindset of 7-iron setup, 7-iron ball position, 7-iron swing. That's the one that works for. And that could be a good player, like myself, or that could be a high handicap.
Tom, it's been fantastic to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking some time out and spending it with us and answering some of the questions that our followers and everyone has had for you. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's quite early in the morning for you. You probably just started work, haven't you? So
yeah, we're just getting up and going, but that's fine.
Yeah.
We're used to this, especially trying to help you guys out, over in Europe and the UK. So.
Perfect. Well, I mean, hopefully it won't be long before we can get across and see you guys and hopefully play some golf, or you guys come over here and play some golf when the golf course is open back up again, obviously. But yeah, I really appreciate your time, Tom, and it's been great to talk to you. So thank you.
So just got off the call with Jose and Tom over in America from COBRA Golf, and it was awesome to talk to them about the new RADSPEED line of products, as well as field some of the questions that you guys had sent in to us. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. I've absolutely loved talking to them and getting kind of the real deep insights into how these products are designed and who they're aimed at and the testing process they go through. It's been fantastic. For a geeky person like me, this is literally as good as it gets. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed it as well, and we'll see you all very, very soon.